Doubles.
Doubles. The forgotten Melbourne derby with Victory versus United, and we got Ronaldo throwing fits away at Newcastle at is it St James Park?
St. James Park, formerly known as Sports Direct Arena.
Oi, that's gone. That's gone. Alrighty, play the music. Let's set this one up. Huh?
One last time for 2021, you rascals.
Ooh. Goodbye this year.
Say hello to Miguel Sanchez.
Oh, goodness. Don't remind me of the passing of time. I don't like to be reminded of that.
Nah, mate. That's why watches were invented. And clock.
The Swiss. They got me again. Banking and watches, my two biggest enemies. Time and finance.
And I have neither of them.
I got none of them.
No time, no finance.
That's a good point. I got need for neither of them.
Fuck it.
Alrighty. Let's get away from being so philosophical at the top of the show. Sydney versus the Bulls. Can you believe it? Their red hot start has ended. I didn't think the run would come to an end. They were playing such good football.
Not like this.
Not like this is probably the best way to put it, man. I mean, Sydney just out of nowhere kicking into gear.
Yeah, the youngins, mate. The youngins were keen. Patrick, I forgot the guy. The funnies. Every week. No, but not Bahaja. Is it Yat? No.
Yazbek.
I was gonna say Yahtzee, but I'm like, no, that's the board game.
No, Yazbek. Yeah.
Yeah, Yazbek were all were kicking into gear. They all looked again. It's kind of they looked like a team that wanted to win and that wanted to play. And they all looked hungry. And it was crazy to see that a lot of the goalmouth action that was happening for Sydney was all down that left side. And it's not to say that Murinaja was that bad. Like, he didn't look like he was at fault for a lot of them. It just looks like a complete collapse in the space between, or the triangle of space between him, Muamba, and I can't remember who. It wasn't Mariappa. I believe it might have been.
No, that left centre back was Mariappa. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it was Mariappa. I thought it might have been in the middle, but that's more. I think that might have been Uscott.
Yeah, but like it was kind of hard to even say it was a shortcoming of any one of them. It was kind of just that side was being so overwhelmed, and they weren't really provided any extra assistance. It was just kind of left to those, 3 or 4 players in that area to deal with it. I mean, the idea would have been probably to stop the play a lot earlier. I felt that this was probably the game in which the Bulls' sort of conservative approach worked the most against, not conservative, counter-attacking approach worked the most against them. I feel like in the other games it hasn't really bitten in the ass, but in this one, sort of sitting off, like, that this area is being exposed and being overrun. When you sit back and let them have, attempt to sort of try break you down, and they figure you out so early, playing on the counter is dodgy to do, because, if they've already got the keys, and you're already giving them a go after go at, the 3rd or 4th, 5th, 6th minute, then you're setting yourself for a really long game. You know what I mean? Like your back's up against the wall early, and you're letting them take swings.
Yeah. I thought it was, again, to your point, the counter-attacking game plan really got exposed here, because unlike when they went down early to Jets last week.
Yeah,
Jets kind of let them back in by letting them kind of dictate and overcommit, and they were kind of chasing that second goal. Whereas, and they also had a man advantage, which is all the more reason to attack from the Jets' perspective. But in this game, it really showed that there isn't a plan B for Macarthur. There wasn't really many adjustments made. Slight adjustments, but they're not game-changing adjustments. It was more of a positional sense that they changed. There wasn't a real sense of urgency as well. Maybe that was conveyed just because they couldn't string passes through, which was interesting to watch. But yeah, no, it just really exposed. I thought, Macarthur really looked, I guess, not confused. That's not the right word, but more so just lost after they conceded that first goal, because it's almost like they didn't expect to go down early in such a manner where they just drove by them. Bahaja runs down the byline, and then Patrick cuts the ball in, and then easy tap in. So they all kind of happened that way, which was interesting to watch. So I'm a bit surprised that they rolled over in a sense to this Sydney team that was depleted. If you look at the paper.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think also, them starting off relatively well in this game, creating a lot of chances early, and then conceding practically straight after that. They started off very well and conceded what was in the 15th or 16th minute, the first goal.
Anyway,
you know what I mean? It was against the run of play up until that point, but then from there onwards, that same exact sort of formula that worked for the first goal worked for the second and created fits for the rest of the game. So like it kind of was like, all right, if you're going to play on the counter attack, you don't want to do it when the team you're going up against already sort of has your number. You know what I mean? Like you need to give them a question to answer on the other end, and they really weren't. I mean, Sydney's defense this year has probably looked the worst that it's looked in the last few years. Overall, the least stable, and their ability to maintain possession has been the weakest so far. So when you go in there and play on a counter attack, you're sort of making sure that they're not having to worry about their weaknesses. So then when you counterbalance that with the fact that they've gone and put all these young, hungry players on, so now they don't have to worry about their weaknesses, and they've also got guys out there that are willing to go out there and prove themselves. So I don't know. I think it was a nice recipe for a perfect win for Sydney. But at the same time, it kind of makes me ask the question of how sustainable is it? How likely is it for us to see this lineup again? Yazbek, Trent Bahaja, Patrick Wood, who was the left mid? Or was that? No, that wasn't Trent. Who's the left mid for Sydney? He's like a 23-year-old fella as well.
Let's find out.
Relatively young. But is how often are we going to see that lineup? Are we going to see that combination of players again? Burgess, yeah, there you go. Right, I think that was one of his first goals for Sydney.
I believe it is. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, are we going to see these guys, play again? So, like, I can't go out there and say this is like what we can expect from Sydney when they play their best, because I don't know if these guys are going to play that often together. So I don't know. I'm just curious to see, do they build from this? Does this answer some questions that what's his name, Corica had? Is he willing to drop some players in favor of this lineup in future? Am I off the ball? And maybe this is something that they've been sort of trending towards for a while, and this is just them finally committing to it. I'm not sure.
It's hard to say, because a lot of the play. Well, I guess the core spine, if you will, of Wilkinson, Caceres, Redmayne, and I guess you can count. Rattray, you could say, but he wouldn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't start every time. But I mean, Caceres, Wilkinson, Grant, and Redmayne, pretty much the immovable objects of the starting lineup, were all in there. The pieces around them changed. It's hard to say again, because a lot of youngsters, a lot of enforced changes due to the current predicament that we're in.
Exactly.
In terms of COVID. So, you're right. It is hard to say. We'll have to see how they go next week. They did win with a different team against Wellington.
That's true.
Which was a good win for them. But I felt they looked more convincing this time around. But it's again, it's a different team with those four guys that are constants. It's hard to say, will this continue? But I mean, hopefully, if COVID permits, we'll get to see them play their next game.
Yeah, I like seeing. Yeah, true. The thing is now is all the postponements. We don't really know what's gonna happen next. But it was nice seeing. It was nice seeing Yazbek. It was nice seeing Patrick Wood, Trent Bahaja, and Burgess. Obviously, slightly older than super young.
Yeah, Patrick Wood too was great.
But yeah, great players. But it's just good to see them all playing together. Sort of gaining that sort of cohesiveness all at the same time. I don't think we see a whole lot of that in the A-League. I think we see a lot of experience being favored over trying to bet in some young talent. So it's good to see. I don't know, man. Like, I'm looking at their last game. They had Yazbek on there, and they had Burgess on there, and the other two fellas were on the bench. So it's like, out of these 4 or 5 players that made this impact this game, how often are we going to see them again? Are they going to be able to recreate this performance again with different players? Because they might be able to. So look, I think we've seen a good flash from Sydney here. I think it's a good place for them to build on. I just think at this stage, though, it does raise a few more questions than it gives me answers, I think, at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, victory versus Western United. Huge
The
game, great
the
game.
the newbies versus the OGs. Geez, that was
Yeah.
difficult to get out of the mouth, but that's what she said. But yeah, it was. Look, credit to United. They got a late
Mm.
goal, a consolation, pretty much. Really didn't. I guess it did make the contest a little bit interesting towards the end, but they really
Yeah. Yeah.
watching. Oh, his name is eluding me right now. Number 88. Let me pull up the name right now because I have to. I have to. He has to be put on blast. He was an ex-City player. Kilkenny. There you go. Kilkenny with the piss weak attempt to tackle the guy to stop their last counter.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What a piss weak attempt, mate! You take him down in the middle of the field. You take your cheddar. You take your cheddar and you walk off. You let
Yeah.
them continue. Why wouldn't you stop the attack? It literally is make or break. If you stop this attack, they just have to take a really long set piece or play it short. They waste time, or gives you something different. Literally, just did the ole and let him run through.
Yeah. It was weird, eh?
Goal, then D'Agostino finishes the game off at the end. So
Mm.
bizarre choice, but even more bizarre, I found the way I guess Victory buckled in the last 10 to 15 minutes. Really, just kind of skating on ice throughout the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Roderick
gonna
makes
say it didn't feel like
didn't
Western
feel
United came.
like
It
a
didn't
good
feel like
close.
you didn't feel like United came back into the game. It felt
Mm.
more like Victory let them back in.
Yeah,
You know what I
Roderick
mean?
makes a clumsy clearance. Allows. I'm shit with names, but I believe it was his Serb. I knew it was Alexander. Alexander Prijovic
Mm. Mm.
lets
Mm.
him score a nice goal, great
Yeah.
goal. But I
Yeah.
mean, they were knocking on the door for a lot of the second half, but they didn't really have a finishing point. And then up until that, they didn't really create any gilt-edged chances. A lot of
No.
cut shots
Yeah.
or a couple of dinks here and there. But yeah, just a slight concern, just with the way they finished the game for victory. But again, in saying that, they took the counter, D'Agostino scores, they iced the game. It's
Yeah.
not really much to complain about. It's just
Yeah.
that maybe against some of the higher level teams,
Mm.
and in more crunch moments, could bite them in the ass. But overall, I mean, good start to finish, pretty solid all around. Pop's dream continues.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a redemption arc, if you will.
Yeah, man. Yeah, atmosphere was great the whole way through the
Mm,
game as well. It was just terrific.
mm,
It was a good watch. This one, it was a good watch. It's mostly because Victory did give United the feeling that they were still in the game when
mm.
they probably didn't need to, you know.
No, not at all.
But great game to watch. Good start for Pop continues. I mean, I don't
Mm,
really know. Like, I don't. I feel like uh, it's almost too good to be true so far. The start for Melbourne Victory. You know what I mean?
mm, mm,
Because now there's almost nowhere really for them to. There's nowhere really for them to go up. Really,
yeah.
like there's not a whole lot of room for growth for them. So I'm just curious when, and I don't want to say it's inevitable, but when a potential, downtrend hits them, what's it going to be like for them?
Mm,
What's
mm,
the rebuild? What's the sort of, not the rebuild, but what's the reaction to that going to be like?
mm,
Just given the fact that they were so deep in the doldrums last season, like how strong is their confidence? Is it sort of paper thin where, one or two bad results will send them on a skid, or are they
mm,
actually, how much have they bought into the pop plan?
The pop plant.
The pop
Um,
plan.
but no, look, they did recruit well. They got rid of a few players from last season.
Yep.
Kept some of the ones that did shine through that tumultuous period. But they did bolster the signing of Roderick, Kellever,
Yep.
and goalkeeper, which I thought was another great signing for them so far. Margiotta as well
Yeah,
doing
Magiota's been good.
Rojas is finding form as well.
Mm.
Hopefully, he stays clear of injuries because he's a little bit injury prone, and he did pick up a few recently, a few little knocks that kind of dampened his time on the pitch. But I mean,
Mm.
when you look at it on the field, the product itself looks great. They
Yeah,
defend
it
well,
does. Yeah.
attack seamlessly. The goals are there. The top of the table as we speak. It all seems to be working. My concern is obviously, to your point, what happens when there's injuries? What happens if maybe Roderick goes down? If
Yeah.
Margiotta goes down, or Burgess or something like that. What happens when that goes down? So something to keep an eye on. And do they have the distance, obviously, to make it to the end? Or are they cursed by Popper's inability to seal the deal and win the title? So he got to the final before with Perth and absolutely crumbled against Sydney FC, and there was a few games with Western Sydney Wanderers at his heyday when that did happen. So it's there's still a few question marks, but I think the best part about it is that they're not at the bottom anymore. Quite opposite, literally, right at the top.
Yeah.
And they're looking good while they do it. So hopefully they can still ride out, to the end of the season, playing like this and looking as dangerous as they are.
That's the thing, is like, I think from in terms of the product we're seeing on the pitch, I would say it's probably right up there in terms of quality.
Oh, 100%.
Because the other top of the table team this whole way through the season has been Macarthur. But I think if you were to compare football to football, you'd say Victory puts much better of a product out there.
Yeah, 100%. If
I had more pragmatic,
if I had to purchase a ticket to watch one team, it'd definitely be Vic over over Macarthur. That's for sure.
Yeah. Nah, agreed. So yeah, look, it's a good start for them. They're continuing on it. Western United, I'm a little not disappointed in them, but I was kind of expecting a little bit more from them in this game to get up for the derby a bit more. Especially when they were given that goal, I really thought they were going to turn the Jets on from there, but they really didn't. Like they didn't seem to even
wheels in the mud.
Yeah, didn't even really have a tangible reaction to picking that goal up in a derby. So anyways, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot from them this season. They're smelling a bit more mid-table this year than they did last year.
100%.
Alrighty. Now, how many postponements did we have, by the way?
So we just had Brisbane's game. The Raw postponed their game. We've had Central Coast, Newcastle Wanderers. I know that one of them, I think it was Newcastle Wanderers that were playing against each other. But 8 out of the 12 teams in the league have at least one positive case within their ranks. Postponements flying everywhere and anywhere, to the point where we don't even know if they're showing replays or games are actually being played. But I guess one thing I wanted to kind of bring to the table was, how does this affect the rest of the season? Because obviously they will have to make these games up, and there will be double game, whatever the case may be, if they end up being that all rescheduled games. How does this affect the league in the long run in terms of the competition? So does this shake? Do you reckon this shakes up anything in terms of how teams might finish? Because obviously, some of the teams that are affected do have a game in hand. Some teams maybe might have a game or two in hand by the time we get through this turbulent period. So does this affect how the title may finish? Who might finish down the bottom or in the playoffs or whatever it is? Do you see anything like that happening?
Yeah, I would say that for teams like in this specific scenario, where two teams that are very well built, established, haven't really changed that much from last season and were championship quality in Melbourne City and Sydney, who've started poorly, those teams will benefit from this sort of thing happening, because all the postponements and the extension of the season means that they have more time to figure the shit out before they get into the more serious end of the competition. So like, I feel like for City and for Sydney, this has turned out pretty good. It means they can sort of recollect themselves and actually pick up where they're supposed to be at this point in the season, rather than where they're actually been. If the games are kind of coming hard and fast, and it takes it, they're expending more and more game time trying to figure it out, whereas now that's being extended and they're able to sort of gather themselves before wasting actual point gathering games.
And I think also, if you look at it on the flip side, for a team like Perth and Brisbane, they've played two less games. And I think they haven't played a game since about maybe 2-3 weeks ago at this stage. I could be kind of exaggerating there, but I think it's been about a good week or two since their last game. How does this affect the team? And I think inversely for them, just a lack of match practice.
Yeah. See, that's why there's the difference of, there's the established teams like Sydney and Melbourne City who have all this potential that they're not fulfilling because they've started poorly. those teams benefit from this because they're given more time to fulfill that potential. Whereas a team like Perth, who needed the time on the pitch to gel together, are being what's it called? Disadvantaged of having that. So they're not able to really get that. Like Perth really hasn't felt like the season has started because even though they've played 4 games, there's been a lot of time in between them, and their marquee signing is yet to kick a ball properly for them. So we don't really they don't really know what their product is really yet. So I don't know. I feel like you're right. For a team like Perth, missing out on this game time is hurting them tremendously.
I think and just the hassle of traveling, even for Wellington, they'll have to set up by the looks of it. I don't know if they have already, but they probably had to set up base somewhere. Another season away from friends and family. I don't think they've gone set up a permanent base in Wollongong again or anything like that. But yeah, it's just another. I guess another team that can get affected. So it's one of those random wild cards, and I think we've talked about across football in the world over the last 2 years for the pandemic. How do these breaks and how do these I guess patchwork teams that have to come out and losing key players due to COVID or protocol or whatever the case may be, or just over the course of the season, just picking up injuries. How does this, kind of win your points, lose your points, and change the narrative in the course of the season? So we'll keep our eyes peeled, and we'll report live to you as we hear it and see it across the season.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to what Perth's story is even going to be. When is the point of no return? When is there so many games that they're behind everyone else that they can't really catch up without them having to play their own games, well beyond everyone else's. So I'm not really sure how it's going to go. It's just going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. I can tell you that much.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get into the EPL, the big circus. And let's start with the what's it called, the ringmaster of the circus here, with
Ringmaster Ralph.
Ringmaster Ralph. Oh man, and the show does go on, huh? The show
really
does go on,
mate.
And you got it here, bro. New coach, same old United, and that it really did feel like that. And I felt like if you'd asked Ronnie himself to write a little summation of the game, I think he'd probably write the same thing. To be honest, his reaction was, "Man, these motherfuckers just don't get it, huh?
No,
we can't put it together." And I think he's really noticing it now.
No, we can't put it together. No one can give me a ball. Like, it was hilarious to watch people try to put a pass into him or a cross, and he just gets stopped at the first man or intercepted or bobbled along to him. But then also, to kind of go against him, he was also poor as well because he didn't.
He was.
He didn't create a chance. He was frustrated, playing a bit of hero ball. Which is understandable for a player of his caliber, but
he was letting his frustration translate into his performance.
Yeah, it was literally translating into every movement he was making. So it was an interesting watch. But really, again, same problem: no movement, no attacking threat. I really think they made Newcastle look better than they actually were, just purely on the fact that they weren't defending properly. Again, the midfield was nowhere to be found. Maximan drags the ball across the box and gets his toe onto it, sends it top corner as he's falling over. Like, it's a very hard shot to replicate if you asked him to do it again. But
yeah, of course,
it shouldn't be happening where he runs laterally across your box. Joe Linton looked like an absolute beast out there. Wilson was getting in behind. I think that the biggest, for me, the key moment that really highlighted how things were going is there was maybe a point around the 65th, 70th minute, and it was just Varane and Maguire at the back, and Maguire stopped and he's looking around and he's trying to make a pass, but then he just passes it to Varane. Varane takes a touch, gives it back to him. They just play another 2 of those, and then I think Maguire ends up paying it forward to McTominay or makes a lateral pass, non-progressive pass.
You also made there was this pattern happen many times where the ball would go square to Maguire, and the fullbacks, whether he's facing towards the right or the left, the relative fullback would make a run. Expecting that sort of ball. It doesn't necessarily need to be over the top, but the switch of play.
Just a big diagonal.
He never played it, never even once. And it wasn't even that he played it and failed it a couple of times and then gave up on it. From what I saw, it just felt like he was. You said he was tentative, and it did really feel like that. Like he just wasn't willing to take that sort of that risk, I suppose. And was just willing to just sort of pass those opportunities up and give it back to Varane or back into. My favorite was when Matic came on. He was getting the ball so much, and it's like, bro, you're 1-1 against Newcastle. How the hell are you going to transition the ball quickly with Matic? He takes 4 years to turn. Like, why are you putting this old man in this position where he's back to like 2 defenders closing in on him, and you're putting him in there like he's peak Xavi or Iniesta? Like, hey, I'm going to fizz it into you here, and you're going to turn that bloke and spring a ball through to Rondogs, and we'll all be sweet. Like, I don't understand. Like, do these players, do they not play with each other at training? Do they not understand, okay, Matic is capable of these things, Fred's capable of... Are they not aware at all? Do they all train in their own isolated rooms? Like,
it was... it was just weird because, like you said, it was Tellez, it was, what do you call it? Dalot, that's his name. Dalot was constantly bombing down the right-hand side, hugging the touchline. And then Maguire would look at him, but he wouldn't give him the ball straight away. Like, you pay that pass straight away, you ping it over the top while people are still organising. And Newcastle, again, the goal they conceded was poor on their part because for the cross to come in and then 3 of them to not mark or not pay attention to where Cavani is, it's 3-on-1. There's 2 people loose or spare to pick him up. Why doesn't anyone actually pick that up? So it was bizarre, and they really just did themselves in. But credit to Newcastle, they dug in. They actually, Almiron hit the post late. Jacob Murphy hit the post late as well.
Bro.
So they really did. No, I think they were very close. Maybe like 1 or 2 plays after, but after each other. But it was a solid effort from Newcastle. But I think United really, they made them look better than they were, and they gave him too much respect and not enough. Like the commentator there made a good point. Why would you play McTominay or a double pivot in a game against Newcastle? Like, what threat would they possess where you need someone to destroy in the midfield? More firepower. That's your thing. More firepower. Put Donny on. Play 2.
That's the thing. Like, what? They really don't want to play Donny, huh?
Yeah,
even when they were chasing the game and having someone on there to sort of be able to man possession and control the pace when you look for the killer goal towards the end, they still overlooked him and decided to play someone else. Like, I really don't. They must be seeing something in the training sessions with him to
he must be a poor trainer or something. I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. It's 2 coaches now. Like, I don't know. Maybe Ralph hasn't had enough time with him to really make the call on it yet. But like, I don't know. I feel like you could give him a look in. I suppose at this point,
try something else. Even Ollie got at the end of his tenure, the final pick was Donny van der Beek.
Very true. But nothing really in attack for United. Really struggled. The first half particularly really, really, really struggled to get the ball into the final third in dangerous areas. Really not creating a whole lot. In the second half, I don't know if it was probably a little bit of Newcastle tiring and fatiguing and just also I felt like they moved Fernandes into a more deeper playmaking role, and then he was able to be the one pinging those balls through, and we're getting a lot of nice switches. Exactly, we saw the switch over to Sancho. So like I feel like there was some positive adjustments, I suppose, throughout the game for United that maybe wouldn't have seen earlier in Ollie's tenure, but I don't know. We haven't seen enough of the Ralph days yet to really make a call on it. But at the moment, it really does feel like they're still having the same old problems. It's just slightly reskinned, and also sort of the same sort of strange decision making happening. With Donny still not getting a chance and that. So maybe there's something deeper to it that we're all missing.
Maybe.
The Foxes, they had a pretty sick double header, in my opinion. And boy, were they 2 very different games. Very, very different games.
Very different.
Yeah. Take us through the City game, City versus the Foxes, or Foxes versus City. I think Foxes was home.
9 goals in this game, and it wasn't an 8-1 result towards Leicester, or it wasn't an 8-1 thumping of Leicester, I should say. Really a game of two halves. So I guess a quarters of different games for Leicester. They're a basketball team now, but really the first half for them was pretty abysmal. Conceding easy goals. The set pieces were really crumbling for them, and a bizarre penalty from Yuri just decides to go for the edge spear on Laporte on the corner and just gives away a really silly penalty. Mahrez thoughts at home. It looked like City just had free reign to do whatever they want. It looked like a training session at some points.
It did. They really did.
But in the second half, just City kind of switched off defensively, stopped tracking back, getting countered. And look, credit to Leicester. They made a game out of it. But then again, they fucked it up by not doing their due diligence on corners, marking, getting in front, doing all the little things on set pieces to stop this stem of goals happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a weird game to watch as a neutral. But look, credit to City. They have the firepower to push past them. Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne got on the score sheet as well, which is good to see, especially for this period of the season as well, when it really does get chaotic.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, again, credit to Leicester. They did show some fight in them. Lookman looks, pardon the pun, looks good off the bench and coming as a rotation piece. We'll see if he can finally fulfill any sort of potential remaining.
He's a loanee though, correct? He's from
Yeah,
Leipzig.
he's on loan. Yeah, he's on loan from Leipzig, but he's been on loan at Everton. He was there permanently. They brought him back. Then on loan at Fulham, on loan now at the Foxes. So you'd think finally he'd kick into gear, and he looks like he's kind of finding some form. But it's up to him at this stage. There's nothing really stopping him from I guess succeeding besides himself. And he should be in line for more minutes considering the injury woes, COVID. You never know what's going to happen. So
of course.
and the fact that he's playing well when he gets his minutes. So
yeah, man, he's clutch. He's been clutch so far. He's scoring at very opportune moments.
Especially this morning.
Especially this morning. I want to get into that one a bit more. How about Schmeichel ending Mo Salah's streak on pens? That's what was the streak? How long has it been going for? Do you know?
No, I didn't hear that stat.
Yeah, no, it was a big streak. But Schmeichel ends it, and what's funny is there was that video that came out of Mo Salah talking to Ben Foster, and he's like, "Hey, if you would have, if I took the pen, like, which way have you dived?" And he was telling him, "Oh, my research says this and that," And Schmeichel afterwards, after this game, gets asked, what were you thinking as Salah was about to take the pen? Did you have any things rehearsed? Did you know what his what his best side was on? He's like, nah. I just felt with it. I went with my gut and I just went with it. And I just think that was such a nice sort of juxtaposition to like Ben Foster's, like, he's that type of keeper that's got all the stats. The guy reading him off like, okay, he goes this many left, this many right, yada yada yada. And then you have people like Kasper Schmeichel. Is it Kasper? No. Yeah, Kasper Schmeichel.
Yeah, Kasper. Peter Schmeichel's his dad.
Peter's his dad. Yeah. You have keepers like Kasper Schmeichel just operating on pure vibes.
Yeah, and you can tell he's one of those guys that his saves are very instinctual. They're not. It's something that you can't train. Like a lot of his reflex saves and tips over the bar and to the side of the bar, and his point blank save, which I think is an underrated feature of his game. Where I think he stops a lot of point blank stuff.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
He springs a lot. He's very reflexive and really good at anticipating where the ball will
he's great at closing down angles and one-on-ones.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all gut instinct. I think that's something that it's a special trait amongst him. And he's pretty to keep. But look, credit to him. He saves it, and then Mo Salah hits the bar. On the follow-up, and then kind of clears up gets his head out of the danger zone and keeps the ball out after the follow-up as well. So I mean, great game from him overall. I thought he definitely won them a point.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, look, they could have been even happy. Like I'm sure they were happy with the point. But I just think that Schmeichel and overall the key figures for Leicester really stepped up in this Liverpool game. something that wasn't happening or hadn't happened really up until this point. And I don't know if it's going to be a turning point for them, or if it's going to be something where, it's sort of a blip on the radar, so to speak. You know what I mean? We saw a lot of injuries for them as well today.
Especially,
Some key cogs go off. So, I'm curious. This is kind of like that Sydney game against Macarthur, where it's like, is it a marker for change, or is it just a moment that's just going to go by and they're going to return to previous form? I'm kind of curious which way they go, because something that we didn't see in this game that has been a theme for the whole way of Leicester's season is, their ability to defend set pieces. Liverpool's very good on set pieces, so to keep them out for a whole game when you've been particularly bad at them, is sort of saying some sort of a change in the trend. So interested to see what happens there. Maybe they're going to have a reverse of the other Rodgers years, where instead of doing well the whole way through and then collapsing towards the end, maybe they'll gather themselves for the final third and make a real push for the top 5 spots. But great game though. Terrific game.
Yeah, 100%. Just one of those days for Liverpool where the ball didn't want to go on the net. I think, to Leicester's efforts, they did their part. But some of like Mane missing that one-on-one, I think that was the 10th time he took that shot, because 9 times before that he probably scores.
It was ridiculous. I don't know how he even got under it that much, because
it didn't really bobble that much. It's just, I think he just struck a ball, and that's it.
Yeah. Anyways, like you said, combination of that, Liverpool not being able to put away chances they normally do, and key Leicester players stepping up. I also think that a little bit of obviously luck. I mean, Ndidi made such a bad challenge to give them that pen.
For sure, right? He was poor this game. It was surprising.
Exactly. So any other day on some regular luck, that pen goes in and we move on. But so it lined up for Leicester, and hopefully it's a turning point for them. West Ham versus Watford, totally different game though. What do you think of this one?
It was good. I liked West Ham in this one. They went down early. Dennis, the bus seat bandit, the man, if you remember a few years ago when he was at Bruges, argued with his coach about getting shotgun over a seat, and then ended up, getting a drop for the next game, which is surprising to consider that the man is banging goals for fun at this point with Watford and only scoring worldies. Great goal. Set the stadium alight early on. But look, got Elton John out of his chair. Look, Watford fell apart. That's granted.
Yeah.
But, West Ham were looking super slick. Super slick. 2 quick goals in the first half, and then the rest were just icing on the cake, really. And then everyone just kind of turned up. I think that's the main takeaway from this. Bowen, Antonio got an assist, Benrahma, Souček. Everyone did their part. And to make sure that the result was taken away, and make sure that they end this skid, because we've talked about, or everyone's really talked about how great they've been this season and how they've surprised. But what slipped under their radar is they haven't won a game. This is their second win in 8. Their last win was in November against Liverpool. But since then, they've had difficult opponents in Man City and Chelsea. But really, not really a difficult schedule. A few draws, and maybe it's a bit of fixture congestion and fatigue in the legs, because obviously they do play an intense system. It does require a lot of running and covering, and they're not the deepest squad. And Moisey's one not to tinker around too much. So maybe you could consider all those factors in why they haven't won. But granted, it's 2 out of 8. They're still in the hunt. I mean, they're 5th at the moment, 4 points behind Arsenal, a point ahead of Tottenham. A team in its own right, with Conte. 4 wins out of their last 7 and undefeated. The other 3 were draws. And against
really turning it around, huh?
Yeah, really building something there. So it's getting hot and heavy at this stage, especially for West Ham. They've had this slide. I guess the overall theme of the episode is this a turning point? Can they kick into gear? Hopefully they can stay away from I guess cancellations and stuff, because so far I believe they might not have been affected, or if they have, it's only 1 game. So far they got out of the way early. But
I
yeah,
don't think they've been affected because they're way up there with games played. They're
yeah.
essentially tied first.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. But yeah, no. Hopefully they can. As much as I like Arteta and Arsenal, I'd rather see Moisey and the Irons up in fourth place, and you know,
Yeah.
hopefully they can pick up from where they left off at the end of this game.
Hmm. Yeah, man, I agree with you. I want to see if it's is it going to be a place where they can build on and into for 2020, 2022. Sorry, 2020. We're going back in 2 years.
Mate,
Is it going to be
the blob.
if is it going to be a marker for change for them, or they're going to sort of return to the previous median of seasons past where they're out of the hunt for the top four. But look, it's we're heading into the hairier part of the season. There's teams behind them that have games in hand on them that should reasonably be maybe higher than them. I'm talking your
Yeah.
Tottenhams, your Uniteds, your Leicesters, all of them. And then you've
Mm.
got teams like Aston Villa and Brighton that will, skim points off them as well, could skim points off them as well through the season. So I feel like it's a much harder slog than I think most people perceive it to be for West Ham. I think at the moment the perception is they're still on a good shout for top four, top 4 or 5. But I think it's a lot harder than it actually is. You know what I mean? It's difficult. The people behind them have a good chance of leapfrogging them, and the people in front of them are really holding on to those spots tight.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a very tight close to the season for them. I'm
Mm.
interested to see if they get European football again,
Mm.
because I think getting that again for another year will mean that their ability to recruit talent will be much improved, and hopefully they're able to reinforce and become more stable. I'd like to see them sort of rival Leicester in terms of their stability of quality
Yeah.
of what they can put out. That'd be cool.
Mm.
Yeah, so look, some great games, even though a lot were postponed, to be honest. I think it's probably due to the messiness of the schedule. Players are sort of out of rhythm. You have your game like the 6-3 of City versus the Foxes. So, some crazy shit is happening. Let's end on some little bit of some gossip. We haven't done this in a while. But one of the early big name signings of the transfer window. I mean, I don't really know of a bigger one so far that we think
What about
maybe coming.
Rafinha's loan to Real Sociedad, huh?
That's a big one, actually. That's a good one.
Huge.
Huge. That's game changer. But Ferran Torres signs for Barcelona. Double the price for which they paid for him from Valencia, it seems. So
Good business.
good business by the bald fraud.
Ball fraud, mate. Moving and shaking.
I love that transfer policy they have where he said is like, if a player doesn't want to be here with us, then they can go.
If you don't like it, you can leave.
I wonder if they would be as willing though if the offer from Barcelona was lesser.
Well, of course they'd buy. Hey, look, you can leave at a price. You can leave at
It has to be a good price. Anyone, if you're willing to leave and we get a good deal for you, you can go. That's the full quote. He's just chopped off.
Yeah, Pep forgot the rest of it, but yeah,
he's censoring himself.
Look, at least they didn't they acquiesced to his whims. Especially, they got the price they were happy to let him go for. They didn't really. I think it's a smart move because a lot of teams do tend to hold on to some wantaways for too long.
Yeah,
and can sour the team and sour their overall aura and atmosphere and their play as well. Happy news for Sterling, less competition, and Grealish too. Mahrez, look, I thought he was shaping up to have one of his better seasons. I think maybe it might be a personal thing. He just wants to miss his family, whatever the
I
case.
think so, man.
Might be getting a bigger paycheck too. We don't know. But in reality, for Barca, great signing. Think of it this way: you've got now Gavi, Pedri, Ansu Fati, Depay up front. Look, if you ignore the back half of the team, just the midfield onwards and the strikers and all those guys there, looks pretty good if you ask me. A team with Gavi, Pedri, Frankie De Jong, then adding a versatile forward where you can play any of those positions up front. In Ferran Torres, a guy that's I guess been to the school of Pep and understands basketball a little bit. I think definitely a great signing. For a team like Barca, I think he has an opportunity here to really turn into or fulfill some of his potential. Now that
for sure.
he'll be part of a bigger team, and I guess carry a bit more responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he gives the Barca front three a lot more flexibility as well, being the fact that he can play out wide, but can also definitely and should be playing more so through the middle. So like I like that because you've got both flanks being manned currently by very injury prone players in Dembele and Fati. Actually, I feel harsh calling Fati injury prone. He's just been injured quite often.
Yeah, one giant injury.
It's one giant injury, and it's been the majority of his career, but he hasn't had numerous of them. But either way, I think it's a good signing overall. Maybe a bit of a high price, but hey, look, they paid 100 mil to have Jackie G sit on the bench and dribble sideways for the whole time. So it's 40. What is it? 52, 53 mil, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Around that, between the 40 and 50 something mil mark, that's about bang on average that you'd pay for
half a Jackie G.
Half a Jackie G, exactly. We should measure things in Jackie G's from now. But because it was 100 mil on the dot, right? So that actually does work pretty nicely. So yeah, he was about half a Jackie G. I think it's pretty good to pay half a Jackie G for him. I think it's worth it. It's a fair deal. Especially if he's got some potential to grow into. I think if it's Barca, I think there's a million ways you can say it's good. I think relative to how Barca's situation is, it's not as good. Because I feel like of the potential, like the ceiling that it's given an increase for Barcelona, I don't think it's moved that much. You know what I mean? Because really the problems they have, he can't solve. Like what he does is the parts that they're sort of kind of figuring out, you'd think he comes in and really assures them in, like all those sort of gaps that you'd hope a false nine can fill, you'd think he can go in and fill those. But I wouldn't say it's a luxury. I would say that's how you really get optimal performance out of Barca. But it's hard to get to that optimal performance where you're not currently even performing at like mid-tier,
Well, I mean, when you have a leading centre back, I mean, PK's shown his age a few years ago, really over the hill for a long time now. I think priority should have been maybe a centre back, but again, in this market, what centre back?
It's what it's like. It's like you go get it. It's like you get a Toyota Camry and you take it for a racing tune. It's gonna make it nicer, probably like a percentage or two, but you would have been better off fundamentally, improving the foundations of the vehicle rather than trying to do the little polishing touches at the end. Because that's kind of what this Ferran Torres signing feels like to me. It's great, it's good, but I feel like there were more pragmatic moves to have made. But at the same time, it might be because Xavi sees things in those fundamental areas that he thinks he can already fill with what he's already got in his resource pool at Barcelona. But, we're seeing a lot of experimentation. They're already putting on better performances than before. Maybe he's just trying to make those sort of bargain deals that he thinks he can only get in COVID, so that when they finally go and they have the balance book to be able to go out and just get those key cog players in, the role players, so to speak, they could just go out and get a shopping list of them. I'm really just fucking speculating, to be completely honest with you.
Look, Barca is nothing but speculation at this point. Will Xavi survive the season? Where will Barca finish? Will they even make it Champions League? That's one of the major speculations. But look, the club is in tatters, but at least, the sail might have some holes, but at least they're sailing towards shore.
Bro, that's exactly the only way that I can spin this in a good context. I can't tell you that they're doing too crash hot right now. I can't tell you what exactly is that, is going to be the saving grace for this team. It's this player, it's this move, it's this plan or tactic or this back line or this lineup. It just feels better than it did before. That's all I can say. It just feels like we're heading in a positive direction. That's all. There's no tangible, there's nothing like really I could concrete, I could grab hold of and show you. It's literally just
feels good.
It feels good. That's it. It feels better.
We've gone past the Messi saga. We've looked past it. Bartomeu's gone. Koeman's gone. We've pretty much gotten rid of the worst parts of it. Now it's just like, well, it is what it is. The world might be over, but at least I'm still here. We can still
you've got all these random players with the names from the Canary Islands and shit. They've got X's and shit in their name, and they're really digging
a lot more Barcelona like.
Yeah, exactly. Where it looks like you got a bunch of Barcelona regens in your you're 10 years deep in your career mode on FIFA. Like that's more of the Barca that I remember watching growing up when they were in their really peak philosophical age, where they were really pushing through the academy products. And I think that's what they need to go back to. They went off the rails. They need to kind of get back to that idealistic sort of way of being, because the reality is they don't have a talisman at the moment like Messi to say we should be on the level of your Madrids and your Liverpools and all these. We're not. We're back in the searching for the next sort of diamond, and to be able to do that, you have to experiment. If you're going out there and getting pragmatic signings like Luke De Jong and shit like that, you're not going to come across the next Messi. Like he's not going to be 28 years old. You're not going to buy Jamie Vardy, at 25 years old is getting his first contract and suddenly he's the best player in the league. Like that's just not going to happen. So we need to go back to this. So it's nice to see this. Whether it's going to prove fruitful, we're not going to know for quite some time, but at least it feels a little better. Feels good.
Feels good, JPEG. What a way to end it.
What a way to end it. Alrighty. Catch our replays on the Spotify, on YouTube, even for a little bit on Twitch. Follow us on the socials at Last Goal Wins Pod on Twitter, at Last Goal Wins Pod _ on Instagram, at Last Goal Wins Podcast on Facebook. All glory be to Bozza. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening.
Stay safe and see you in 2022.
2020. Oh, Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy